boss out the window and got fired from my last job. Hot wired a city truck and turned it over in the mayor's yard.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Good morning from the South Texas TV studios. We're thrilled to be live. Alive, but thrilled to be live. This is not recorded, although we have an audience that gives us all types of applause. It's thank you. Please be seated. It's way too much, way too early for all that.
They're on their cue this morning, though.
Adulation. But South Texas TV can be found on the
Roku app, Fire TV, Apple TV. It's pretty much everywhere you want to be.
To cement the day, let's have the A.T. Dearland Feed weather report. The weather brought to you by the great folks at A.T. Dearland Feed. The little gin that could for over 50 years, providing farmers, ranchers, and normal people like us everything we need for our lawn, for our animals, for our pets, for our hobby farms.
And abnormal people like us.
There you have it. 67 degrees and partly cloudy in Victoria, heading to a high today of 88. It looks like no real chance. Look at that. At 7 p.m., there's a 30% chance of rain. That's the Maclovio minute. There's no chance it's going to rain today. It's way too hot. It's just going to be humid. And 67 to 88.
Justin Glass checking in. Cody Bauman, good morning. Lisa Poole, David Glass, Marvin Mickish, Torrin Bales, Junior Samples, Judge Posey.
Hello, Judge.
Janie Alvarez, Christina Wise, Diane Tippett, good morning.
Janie
Stephanie
Alvarez.
Conti.
You can call Janie at 212-8888. Janie Alvarez reminds us of the Emmy Science Foundation, a chance for you to contribute, first of all, for you to donate, for you to win, and to help other folks, typically younger folks with spinal injuries, whether they need a walker, a wheelchair, a scholarship, bettering the lives of those unfortunate through spinal injuries. The Emmy Science Foundation has grown. It's a qualified 501c3. Janie gives tirelessly. It's a family event. There are 66 items on this card. $20 gets you in all 66 drawings. Every time they pull a name out, they go, oh, Ash, you won number 14. You won a custom cutting board and knife set from 55 Woodworks. You won that.
But we're going to
put you back in because you're in the next drawing, too.
So
I like your chances.
And it's a lot of fun. The gala is June 10th. Brent and I, disappointed we cannot attend this year. We'll both be out of town.
Next year, I'll get the date earlier, and I will not book a vacation.
But we had a blast last year. It's going to be a lot of fun down at the community center. And Rosemary Bazan was on with Caleb Shaw and Caleb's Meet Victoria yesterday that dropped on YouTube. And talk more about the Emmy Science Foundation and this event, so you can learn a little bit more there.
Just wonderful.
As we cross-promote. And also, if you happen to catch that episode right off the top, was a great little feature on the Gray Barn Mercantile.
Was it?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So my wife Cheryl did a great job catching up with Caleb, and I appreciate Caleb, and she does too for giving her the spotlight. So we appreciate it. Karen Murray checking in, Jarrett McCrugan, Kendra Douglas, the Iceman is in, Mark Kurtz, Joe Mendenhall, Ricky King, Scott Snow, Stephanie Conti, Jordan Glass, Christina Wise. Good morning, everybody. Saw Judge Posey yesterday. I had breakfast at Ramsey's, and
did you?
Came over and said hello. So appreciate that. Which reminds me, you and I have to. We haven't had lunch lately with the judge, so we're going to try to figure that out. Bobby Leister checking in. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the Astros update brought to you by the fine folks at First State Bank?
Well, first of all, at First State Bank, Louise, right now, you can. It's right there. It's Salem and Stockbauer. I got a note this morning from Patricia Nagel,
and they've got sort of short-term CDs that are paying really good interest right now, like 4%.
So Patricia Nagel is going back and forth between Victoria and Sugarland right now. Sugarland is opening their own. They've got a bank there, but they're opening their own location in September of 23. They've got a 7-month CD that's paying 4% annually, which is a good rate right now, with a minimum of $50,000. So you can collect it at that rate and only tie your money up for 7 months.
And make 4%. That's pretty good.
By the way, there's a note here. Would love to visit the show next Tuesday if that works for y'all. Well, yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, we'll be gone.
We're gone next
Yeah,
week.
yeah, you come on.
Yeah.
We'll leave you some instructions. No, next week won't work. The week following will.
Daniel Wade White checking in.
There you go. Just quick trivia for you here. It says the First State Bank opened
Are
its
you going to
doors.
quiz there? Will there be a quiz?
There could be, and I'd pay attention, people. First State Bank opened its doors in Louise, Texas in 1956 with $100,000 in original capital.
Wow.
Yep. The first officers were John W. Hancock. John Hancock. I mean, that's how far back they go.
All the way back to the Declaration of Independence.
Great guy. Anyway,
Gotta
By
be,
the end-
gotta be related, you think?
they opened in May, and by the end of September of that year, they had $1 million in assets. That sounds like being a congressman.
That's not bad.
Barely got there, and now I'm Joe Biden. I'm worth $1 billion.
100,000 in May, and by when they had $1 million?
September.
Holy crow.
Were they keeping Biden's money?
Honors.
You've got to wonder. They continue to grow. Their resolve to stay independent. They're a community-based bank. Today, over $468 million in assets. They have offices in Louise, Ocampo, Sweeney, Blessing, Wharton, Ganado, Bay City, Angleton, Victoria, Woodsboro, and Refugio. So
And
it's
soon
not
to
a
be-
not a little bitty bank.
No, not at all.
By all means, it's the friendliest bank anywhere. Much like the Astros, the little team that could, the little team that just keeps plugging along. Multi-hit games out of Kyle Tucker and Yordan Alvarez. Yesterday, Alvarez hit
4
a
home runs for the Astros yesterday.
Tucker, Alvarez, Julks, and
Someone else.
who else hit one?
Oh, look.
Julks had a
Julks,
grand slam.
yeah,
Corey
Julks had a
Julks had
grand
a grand slam.
His
Astros
first
just,
career Grand Slam.
yeah, and the Astros just cruised.
Rolled. What was the final? 12-4, I
Let me
think.
look
Was
at
that
that.
right? 11-4, something like that?
Yeah, they.
11-4.
Let me check. It matters. We're logging history here. 11-4.
I just
You are
said
correct. But Alvarez
19
hit one.
hits.
400. Every starter in the lineup last night had a hit.
Tucker hit the other one.
Yeah, so Tucker,
Alvarez.
Alvarez, Julks,
And Myers.
and Jake Myers.
Jake Myers hit one. His 5th of the year.
Great game to be at. The Toronto Blue Jays.
Sixth of the year.
What did George Springer do? Remember George Springer? Oh, the sky is falling. We can't go on without
0 for
Springer.
4.
He was over 4.
And that was something, and the Houston Chronicle, I think, ran a piece yesterday, or saw it prior to this series. And this series is in Toronto. It's not,
Toronto.
They're on the road.
It's Toronto for those of us from Texas.
Yeah. But they wanted to try and do the Astros. It was one of those, do the Astros regret letting George Springer go, or, should there be regret? And I'm like, well, if there is, you're probably trading Julks. Springer's had 2 injury-plagued seasons in Toronto. So it's not like, and if the injuries happen, you're not getting much out of him
And
other than paying him to be injured on the sidelines. And in order to make room for him, you're bouncing guys up and down to the minors, or you're having to trade guys like Julks maybe because you got
you
no
have to
room
look at
for
what
him.
they did with the money. Julks is getting paid major league minimum, I'm certain, which is $700,000. It's certainly not chump change, but Julks is not costing them $30 million a year, which is the kind of money. I don't know what Springer got. I bet it was over $20 million a year. And the thing to know is, and I see it with Mike Trout. You and I have talked about it here. Well, is Trout past his prime? Maybe, but he's past his give a dang. That Angels suck, and so when that hammy's a little tight, you say, hey, Skip, I'm going to take the day off. I'm a little sore today. Springer has had some injuries in Toronto. I believe they're injuries he would have played through here if he was worried about McCormick or Jake Myers taking his spot. But when you're kind of the prima donna, when you're the big dog in Toronto, I'm going to sit the day out, Skip. My leg hurts. Everybody's not Lou Gehrig. Everybody doesn't want to play every day. And I think George Springer's a fine player, but I think we've put the money to better use. And we noted the other day that I was wrong about something. I really wanted us to find a way to keep Justin Verlander. At the time, I was romantic about the idea of him finishing his career here and being an Astro. But he's like 2-3 with a 5-something ERA in New York with the Mets, and he's been hurt. His arm didn't hurt, but his hamstring gave out because he's 40. So there you have it. Astros update.
Brought to you by the Friendliest Bank Anywhere.
First State Bank.
Matt Boucher checking in. Nick Rule says, hi, homies. Good morning from the heart of America up there in Oskaloosa, Iowa. He asks a somewhat, I guess, serious question. Is it tough as an Astros fan to see the Rangers ahead of you?
No, it's not, because we know the dog days of summer are coming. And one thing that's going to help the Rangers this year is their new ballpark. They have a ceiling. They have a roof. And where we're at, Nick, it gets hot. We're still on preheat in Texas.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, when you're 4 or 5 games back and it's 130 on the turf, it's hard to play baseball. But now they're going to have a friendly confine, and they may actually – this may be their year. The problem is, if it is, the Astros would miss the playoffs, because even though the Astros have a great record, the records in the American League East are vastly superior overall. Show them.
Let's take a look real quick.
The Tampa Bay Rays are dominating in their division.
Astros are sitting in the second wild card spot right now.
Behind an East team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just ahead of the Yankees.
Yeah.
And 3 games ahead of Toronto. See, the teams they're playing right, like tonight, this week, this series in Toronto, this is huge for the – I mean, I know it's early, but you want to send a message to the teams that you're might be in the thick of things with.
You took 3 out of 4 from the Angels, and they're in 5th spot for the wild card.
Yeah.
So, only the lowly Oakland A's at 12-52. Boy, Kansas City Royals 18-42. And this is something we talk about often here. There's no doubt these are the golden years for the Houston Astros. No doubt about it. You
Enjoy 'em,
watched
folks.
the turn. Jose Altuve had multiple 100-loss seasons. He's had at least 100-win season.
Yeah.
So,
And a couple of World Series.
and a couple World Series. Yeah. So the Astros are definitely going through their golden era period. But boy, how quickly the Kansas City Royals won a World Series not that long ago. They're 18-42.
Yeah, they're terrible.
It's terrible.
Everybody thinks the Angels are on the cusp, and they're not doing well. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not great. Middle,
I think the team that's disappointing is the San Diego Padres. Where do you have them in there? Like, they're way down here. They were expected to be a serious
Well, they made
contender.
a bunch of moves last year at the trade deadline.
Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto. They've got some players.
Yeah. And
individuals.
They're struggling. Diamondbacks probably got to be the surprise out of the National League right now. So
I watched a documentary the other day about the Dream Team and the Redeem Team and the
92 Olympics?
No, that was so that would have been Michael Jordan and them. But now we get up into 2004, 2008, those teams.
Oh.
Carmelo and LeBron and all that. Well, they went somewhere.
The teams that were supposed to win and didn't?
Right. And before they brought Kobe Bryant in, who everybody thought Kobe was selfish and only played for himself and all that, Kobe really, really solidified and brought the right attitude to the Olympic team. He apparently, by all accounts, really was that player that was 100% about winning.
Well, there was no money in the Olympics.
That guy,
just endorsements.
There was one of the foreign players. I think Greece beat him, and one of the players said, "Oh, there's no doubt about it. We love watching them play individually, but as a team, they don't play." And he said, "Basketball is a team game. You can't go out there and win it by yourself."
Nope. You can lose it by yourself.
Poster child for that statement might be LeBron James.
Amanda Smith King, good morning. Greg Garcia. Scott Tomko says, I like Springer. I did too. I think, I will say this. The Astros have done a good job of picking the right time to move on from players that you thought couldn't, maybe were key pieces of winning teams and championship teams, but they've done a good job of filling the voids that have been left behind. So we'll see what happens. That's the Astros update.
Junior Samples just sent me a picture of a a walker, the ones that have the four wheels and the seat built in. It's got the
And the handbrakes.
handbrakes, and on the front is the presidential seal, and it's called Walk Force One. I like that. Let's take a quick break and get into some of the meat of the day.
Let's do that. Armor Air, not the meat of the day, but the heat of the day, and they'll help you beat it. 579-0966.
Where did that come from on a Tuesday?
I don't know.
That was good.
Thank you. Give Armor Air a call for all your AC and plumbing needs.
You need those girls in the back. 5790966. Wow.
They will take care of your AC issues. If you need a new unit, they can install it for you.
Not the meat of the day, but the heat of the day, and Armor Air can help you beat it. I like that.
You like that?
We're not beating meat.
No.
We're beating the heat.
Yeah.
There you go.
Beating meat's a different story.
5790966.
That's the OnlyFans version.
That's the podcast. White Trash Services, 550-1826. Nothing to beat there. If you live in Victoria County or the 6 contiguous, all the way up into Kennedy and Karnes City, White Trash Services is your preferred
Preferred?
trash collection service.
Yeah. With White Trash, you will have a trash-tastic day every day
Every
of the week.
day. USA Concrete Coating, 578-HOME. Charlie Garcia and his team will come out. They'll seal the cracks, clean all the grease off, and put down a tough as nails polyurethane coat that won't crack, stick, peel, or fade.
And they'll get it done in about a day.
Yeah, and you will love it. It'll change. You can brighten your
It'll
garage.
transform.
It will transform your. I've seen it. Yeah. The work is amazing.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Then when it gets hot, when the hurricanes come,
I can't wait to see what they're going to do at Junior Samples
when the
place.
grid fails.
Because you know
it's not an election year, so the grid won't fail. But Went Services for all
That's
your
why it
generator
will
needs,
fail, because by election time, people will forget.
right? Went. W-E-N-D-T. Went Services.
Backup generator, whole home generator.
24 kW installed. It's going to probably cost you about $12,000, all in, all done. But then you've got a warranty. You've got a guy to go to. You don't have Fred who had the ditch witch and oh man, he hit my sprinkler system and geez.
There's
reach out to Went Services.
What was that explosion? Hey, he just hit the gas line.
It's no big deal.
No big deal.
It's no big deal.
You mean the gas line that I needed to hook up to my
Yes.
backup generator?
That one.
gas line? Yes. There you go. No
There
need
you
with
have
no
it.
need with Went. You're not going to have those concerns with Went Services. There's Patricia Nagel checking in. Carrie Bump. Hockey half minute. Vegas 7-3 winners over Florida. 2-0 lead in the Stanley Cup Finals. This series is quickly turning into a very one-sided affair that's a bit of a dud.
That you somewhat called. I mean,
Well,
you told me Vegas was going to win it.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought it would be a little. I picked Vegas in 6. I think at
5 at
5
best.
at best for Florida. They're out of it. They lost their composure at the end of game 1, and they did not get it back in game 2. In fact, it kind of got worse.
So you're not seeing anything,
Nothing
any
that-
flicker that makes you say, hey, they could rally here
Nope.
and it could be a 4-2 win for Florida.
Nope,
Not
nothing.
gonna happen.
Absolutely nothing. And I said this, that lengthy layoff affected Florida more than it affected Vegas. I think Florida had a week off, which was the stupidest thing ever by the NHL, in my opinion. Why? And the conspiracy theorists will be out there thinking, wow, they wanted Vegas to regroup and win.
Not going to happen.
But
Didn't happen
I
that
don't know.
way.
I said it then. This lengthy layoff will hurt Florida more than it will help them because they were rolling. They had all the momentum. Now they've slowed down.
There's brother-in-law extraordinaire Johnny Stockbauer checking in. Patricia, we talked about the bank. We talked about the 7-month CD. We
Nick
talked
Rule,
about the
that's not
Astros.
true. Vegas has not been to more cups in 6 years than Calgary has in like 50. Calgary's been to 3 in their
Be
existence.
careful, Nick. He knows.
And they've won one, which will put Vegas on par with them by this time next week.
There you have it. The great prognosticator of hockey.
So let's see, where do we want to go this morning?
Where has your president been lately? What has he done? Has he fallen anywhere?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not since the Air Force Academy.
No. There was a partial collapse of a building in downtown Davenport, Iowa. That's up where Nick Rule lives, and I'm wondering if Nick was in the vicinity. But I think it was an apartment building that some people were working on, and it partially collapsed. Three victims have been found. They've been missing since that collapse of the building last week, and the bodies of all three have been found. They don't know what caused it.
You got the feeling they're renovating an older building and part of it just collapsed?
Yeah, they were working on the brick exterior, and apparently, I don't know, it's old, about 100-year-old building.
There you go.
And part of it collapsed, which you probably really have to go digging about a year from now when they find what caused it to actually find out what caused it. I wonder if we're going to be saying the same thing in a few months with that horrific train crash in India. Are we ever going to know?
My brain immediately says sabotage. That's just because that's the times we live in. But it could be something as simple as
The Chinese sabotaging them?
or the rail failed. It could be that easy.
Somebody forgot to switch
I mean,
the
look-
tracks, and they plowed into the freight train that was sitting on the tracks, right?
Right here in the United States, in Pennsylvania, you've got warnings on wheels that are ignored, and the wheel locks up and the train derails. So, you got to figure that, at least from a monitoring standpoint, we're probably ahead of India, although we may not be because they use their rails so extensively.
Yeah.
But here it happens, and, of course, all we did, everybody got together and blamed Trump. You remember that? It was like, that's got to be Trump's fault. He eased the regulations on the railroads, although that had nothing to do.
Nothing to do with that
What's
at
Joe
all.
Mendenhall bringing to the table?
Well, with some of you and I were going to bring up a
Yes,
little bit later in
absolutely,
the show, but
Joe.
Joe is remembering and reflecting on the courage, suffering, and sacrifice of those who fought and those who fell during Operation Overlord on June 6th, 1944. And I whine and complain when my plane is delayed. Yeah, their planes their planes were delayed. Because of the fog and stuff. I mean, when you watch that stuff, it was just. But
The Greatest Generation. I watched the deal the other day.
there's nothing. I just can't imagine today that we would you would have
the resolve isn't
hundreds of thousands
there. No.
of troops storm a beach knowing that 40% of you, 30% of you are going to die.
Yeah, the literal game plan by Dwight Eisenhower and company was to throw so many bodies at that beach that enough would get through to beat the Germans. Think about that. The personnel carriers would come towards the beach. The tides were unfavorable. The tide came in very, very quickly. They would drop the door. The troops would come out and just be slaughtered, coming out, many of them dying in the personnel carrier.
79 years ago today. Not many left from that generation.
I saw the documentary, Ash, and the men that reminded me of my granddad, I don't know when this one was filmed, but they were old men at the time, in their 80s. So it could have been 70, it could have been in the 2010s that the video was taken. To a man, their vision would drift away from the interviewer. They would look away, and they would reflect. And to a man, they got emotional. Just reflecting on, I was there, and there were body parts floating all around me in the water, and the cries of men dying. It's all they did, folks. All they did was save the world.
Absolutely.
That's all they did.
Tyranny,
That's all they did.
fascism.
How are we doing that now?
Nazism.
We invited into our land. We invited in. We elect it. 80 million votes. We elect it. We elect tyranny.
And they embrace it.
Unbelievable. The
And then when you
duty we
speak
owe to
against
those
it, they
folks.
want to cancel you.
Yeah. The duty we owe to those folks is endless.
And how quickly we've forgotten in 79 years.
Fat and happy.
And this isn't the first time. Don't forget, 20 years after, in the 60s, communists reared their ugly heads in this country trying to bring their Marxist doctrine to the U.S. It happened again in the 70s. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War kind of helped keep it away for a while, but here we are 79 years later, and the Marxists and the communists are rearing their ugly heads again in this country. This time, though, we elect them.
Yeah. They're open about it.
Because they don't run as a communist anymore. They run on the Democratic ticket.
Nobody calls them out on it.
None.
We elect them because they're not Trump. Well, at least they're not Trump. At least they're not rude on Twitter.
Yeah. Nick Rule says we were built differently back then. The sacrifice was unreal. Yeah. E. Small says now we have drag shows.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It is a sad time in America, folks.
Sad time in Western civilization. And meanwhile, the rest of the world laughs at the U.S. and lesser so Canada. But the things that are going on in this country, just crazy stuff right now. It blows my mind. And as we talk about this, I don't know that. I don't know that we can win a war like that.
No. We don't have that
Anymore.
resolve anymore.
No.
I think that the individual American fighting man has that resolve, and we certainly have the technology. But do we have
The leadership to do it?
the hand-to-hand, is it time to get in the trench mentality? I don't know.
I think there are some, but I think if you had to rise to that scale, I'm not sure. I think you would see a ton of lawsuits about it regarding a draft,
Oh, yeah.
compulsory service.
Do you see Matt Damon going to sign up to learn to fly a plane, or Ben Affleck going to sign up to fly a plane like Ted Williams and Jimmy Stewart and folks did when it mattered?
And then said, no, don't stick me in the cushy,
Right.
USO
Right.
entertainment division. I want to be where the action is. I don't know.
I don't know what would happen. You have to hope. It is our only hope that the American spirit would rear its head, but the American spirit's being dumbed down systematically. You're taught every day that capitalism is bad. You're taught every day that it's more important how people feel than the truth.
Or than what they produce or what they bring to society or what value they provide.
People now, there was a time, Teddy Roosevelt, if you want to come to our country, you need to bring enough money to sustain yourself until you can contribute to society. And you need to have a plan to contribute. Now it's like, oh, man, you got a bad deal in Guatemala. You're poor. Let me guess, your parents were poor? Yeah, and their parents were poor, and their parents were poor, and you people just sat around your butts and allowed people to manipulate you from the government. You come on over here. It's okay. Just vote Democrat because we're going to take care of you.
Well, and their governments are urging them to come.
Yeah, well, yeah, get them off the dole over there.
So we're sending them foreign aid. Their governments are taking out ads in newspapers, on radios, telling folks to come to the U.S. Then the cartels swoop in and steal kids. I heard a terrible story over the weekend about what they're doing to get some of these kids into the sex trafficking rings, and they're I don't know how you stop that.
Death.
There's a sect of society in this country that is sick and deranged and demented.
Minor attracted people.
Well, them too. But they will cartel members will parade as like talent agents or talent scouts. And they'll say, hey, your kid's beautiful. Your kid has what it takes to make it. Come to our casting or our audition at this hotel at this time. And they do. And it all seems legit because there's food. I mean, they spend money and they make the appearance is what it is, right? Yeah. The appearance is what it is, right? And and the parents are poor. They never prey on the rich folks in these countries because That's the government. But they'll take the kids into a photo shoot and they'll let mom and dad kind of see what's going on. And so they, their guard drops, right? Well, then they tell, well, you go run your errands, do what you need to do. We'll be here, come back at 4 o'clock and we'll be through. So mom and dad leave because their trust has been built up in that short amount of time. They saw what's going on. When they come back to pick up the kids, everybody's gone.
Yeah.
They have no clue where their kids are.
Kids on a boat in Greece.
Kids are being flown to Epstein Island. Who knows? These are the tricks they play, and this is the cartel. Meanwhile, we continue to refuse to label the cartel as the narco-terrorist organizations that they are. Why, I don't know. I think Governor Abbott's done it, but our federal government won't do it. What are they afraid of?
They're out of touch. They're in D.C. The reality is the cartel is all over the country. It's not, I say cartel, you think Mexico. You do, and that's okay. They're very prevalent along our southern border, but the reality is the cartel is no different than the mafia. They're no different than any other form of organized crime. It's an organized crime syndicate that's multinational and sees no borders. They just don't acknowledge. They may operate differently in the United States than they do, say, in Nicaragua. They don't drive down the streets wholesale with machine guns in the United States.
No, they actually have businesses that
Appear
front
legit.
and appear legit, and they own restaurants where they can run their kidnap people through and clean all the money that they've gotten from helping people get to America.
Here's the response we get from Peter McNally, who I think honestly understands where we're coming from, but I think he likes to
goad us, maybe.
I do, but he's thank you for your faith in the future of the USA. Talk baseball and hockey. Peter, your naivety. I'm with all due respect, your naivety and your blatant, flagrant ignorance are annoying. Because if you believe that everything's hunky-dory in the good old USA and that Joe Biden's riding our ship and that all is well, you, sir, are just go check into assisted living. You're done. You have no business on the streets by yourself unaccompanied.
Ah, come on.
You don't. You don't. It is harsh. You can't live a life that long and be that ignorant. You can't. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. How long do you defend it? If Mike Gomez called, I'd tell him the same thing.
Yeah,
we live in a country right now.
When our military leaders are more worried about who can get in and what they wear than being prepared to go to war.
Absolutely.
And I heard it this morning. Somebody said, the fundamental question won't get asked. With all these things going on in the military, fundamentally, do they make our military better? And does it make our country safer? That should be the bottom line for any decision the military has to make and the brass that lead it, right?
They're in the business of killing people.
Are we safer?
They're in the business of killing people.
They were. I don't know that they want to be anymore. That's the thing.
They're in the business now of being inclusive and being a role model for the nation. And, Klinger was a joke. Klinger was on MASH. It was a joke. He was trying to get a Section 8. He tried to get out of the military.
Yeah.
By pretending to be a man in a dress. Now we promote those people. And you expect them to, I'm just going to fight right next to Billy in the big war. Yummy. Bull. People's lives are at stake. Our way of life is at stake. The world hates us.
You were telling me something yesterday. You were talking to a friend of yours who works for one of the big oil companies, and they were starting to, they laid off 250 people, I think, right? Devon?
In the South.
Was it Devon?
No, it wasn't Devon.
Okay.
But 3 entire drilling crews. He said, all my life, he goes, with some fluctuations, notable, both in oil and gas. We've made a living in this country at $80 oil and $2 gas. For better or worse, that's where it's been. That's about where it's at right now.
Well, except for the gas part.
It's $2. And everybody, not gasoline, gas, natural gas.
Yeah.
And now they're pulling back at a time when the Saudis, when OPEC, if you will, is saying, hey, we're about to tighten the spigot.
They just cut
raise
production
prices.
yesterday. They announced it, a 1% cut on production.
United States production companies are backing
A
off.
week
Why?
after saying that their 2024 production wouldn't change. So now they're lying to us. I mean, wouldn't you if OPEC cuts production, wouldn't you want to ramp up production over here?
You would think so.
That would be good for business, but I'm assuming it's
cruise.
because of our policies at the federal level that won't allow for more drilling.
We need to get your friend Vivek
Ramaswamy, yeah.
Get him on here. He's a proponent of drilling. I don't have a problem.
James Carruthers says, I wouldn't recommend anyone join this new military anymore.
No. I
If
don't
they
have a
want
problem
to, but he
with
goes, I wouldn't go out of my way to recruit.
individuals going green. I don't have a problem. You want to drive a Tesla? Good for you. Good on you. Proud of you. Bad investment, but it's okay with me.
I just had this discussion with somebody who's in the electric business. Not wet. I'm talking somebody in the electric business, the generation of power for homes and businesses. And the renewables, which really oil is a renewable, natural gas is renewable. We keep finding more and more of it. It's not the finite resource that they said it was in the 80s and scared us all into trying to conserve it. Remember when we had to conserve oil?
It was all made by lizards.
Now we just try to avoid it.
It was all made by dinosaurs.
Their tongues, that was it.
That was it.
It was
Just
so
their tongues.
finite, just the tongues. That's why their tongues were so long and forked.
Right. Thank you to those of you making the comment that I'm spot on. This bud's for you. Yeah, thank you.
Nick Rule says a 1% decrease in production is a 10% increase in investment to live golf.
I just don't. I don't understand bringing it all back full circle.
But our grid can't handle the EVs and the solar panels on people's houses and the wind farms, which aren't generating. I mean, look at it today. We don't have the storage capacity to hold on to the power that these things generate as they generate it.
We're trying to get more lithium. We're raping Africa to do so.
But the trees aren't moving this morning. And when the trees aren't moving, the windmills aren't moving. So there's no power being generated. And I haven't found the information for Texas, but I pay attention to back home in Alberta where there's been a push for green energy, and every day you can log onto a website and see what power is being generated by what sources. Very rarely are wind and solar doing much of anything to supply for the grid. And on very cold days in the middle of winter when the wind doesn't blow, because when it's 40 below, the wind ain't blowing. The wind has already blown in as that front's moved in. So when it gets that cold and settles in for a week to 10 days, the wind doesn't blow. It's just cold and bitter and still. There's no wind generation at all. They have to fire up the natural gas. They have to bring the coal plants to more production because there's nothing.
Here's my question to you. I think that most of us agree that American resolve overall is at an all-time low. I do believe that observably, if you look at Congress, we say it every day, well, even though we have the majority now, we still won't do anything. It's a lack of resolve. It's a lack of leadership. You see situations like shootings in Uvalde. We have superior firepower. We have the numbers. Nothing gets done because there's no leadership. How do you compartmentalize and rationalize that there's no bipartisan reach across the aisle outrage at the fundamental lack of leadership at the highest levels of our government? it's not enough for you to settle for Joe Biden's crime-riddled regime. There's no getting around it. The only defense people can make is Trump's family did the same thing. That's the only thing they can do. They can't say to you, this didn't happen. Biden didn't extort Ukraine to save his son's butt. He didn't do that. It's on video. He bragged about it at a luncheon because he's Joe Biden. He's above the law. Remember, he was on a scholarship. He finished at the top of his law school class. He's a plagiarizing, lying piece of it.
Peter McNally asked Ash, how do you answer the growth of clean energy? Science says it's a necessity for the future. It's
capitalism, subsidized.
Not even. It's subsidized. Nobody's investing their own money into this stuff.
Nobody.
Except for Elon Musk.
No, nobody.
Most
really.
of the startups have all been subsidized. And
all the windmills are subsidized.
Big oil's still subsidized to a degree. Let's get rid of it. Let's get the subsidization out of it.
The windmills cost $500,000 to build. And the people that own them are in for 100. It's an 80-20 split, to the point that when they fail, they no longer repair them. They take them down and put up a new one. They're made out of plastic, and the amount of petrochemical that's used to make that windmill will never be supplanted by the power generated by that windmill.
Well, what else are you going to make the parts with? They haven't found a green solution to the petroleum needed to make the plastic and other components.
Everything
can't make them out of wind.
Petroleum.
Can't make them out of lithium.
80% of what's on this counter is made out of petroleum. That monitor, that keyboard.
You know what's funny? And they'll shoot you down if you ever bring this up. The only people being green in the green energy industry, Americans.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. They're still burning coal like chimneys in India and China.
And not even that. But have you seen what China's doing to Africa to get
the water
rare earth minerals?
Water cannons.
Here's the funny thing is, oil's the bad guy. But we're literally digging up all the rare earth minerals. Just that term alone tells you that we're going to run out of them at some point. But there's no such concern by the electric folks and the greenies about the dwindling supply of rare earth minerals. Because unlike oil that we keep finding, once you mine that pit of all the lithium, if the earth ever makes more, it takes thousands of years. Once they find no more lithium in that pit, they're gone. Once they find no more cobalt, they're gone. They move on to the next one. They don't even fill the holes anymore. Well, it'll be a good watering hole for the yak when it rains here in Africa, if it rains. So we're just going to leave it.
Pete's right about big oil has been subsidized for years.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. I would end those subsidies.
I would
no
too.
No problem with that. And there's a starting point. Why is it that there's, again, no bipartisan outrage at the leadership that we currently have? Why does it have to be, I'm all in for Biden because Trump is a jerk? Why can't it be, let's just, all of us agree, let's just clean sweep D.C. and put back the people that we want? Why does it have to be, on a scale of 1 to 10, the Republicans are only a 2. They're terrible. But the Democrats are a 3, so by golly, I'm all in with Joe. Why can't there be a Democratic candidate who runs against Joe Biden? Imagine this. A Democrat gets up and says, are you people kidding me? I'm all for entitlements, gun control, a woman's right to choose. I'm all about helping everybody. I want free college for everybody. But Joe Biden's a crook, and that guy's got no business being at the helm of our country. Why can't that Democrat step up? Where is that guy? They all just fall in line behind Sleepy Joe, and then everybody apologizes for what a clown show our administration is. And the world is laughing at us.
Well,
do not think we're respected. We're not.
Who's going to step up on the Democrat side that isn't in the same crook-filled boat? Pelosi?
No. I mean, like, you've
Schiff?
got Hakeem Jeffries spends all his time saying Joe Biden, he's not God. No, he's a God, but he's not the God. Unbelievable.
Let's go. Brandon says green energy. There's nothing green about it when you're digging pit after pit overseas, and that's what I just said.
100% correct.
It's the only people acting green, and it's purely an act, is America.
You'll remember.
We won't mind cobalt here, but we'll let the Chinese do it everywhere around the world.
And American investments in it.
And we'll buy the batteries.
Absolutely. Because we're going green.
Yeah.
But you'll remember that AOC.
Well, Lisa Poole says RFK Jr. might be the one.
But you'll remember that AOC was truly a proponent of tearing down every government building and rebuilding them as like a works program, because that would give people an opportunity to go to work, good government jobs.
But she doesn't believe in
employees.
people being able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Unfathomable.
No, that's crazy.
Just tear it down. We don't need the U.S. Capitol. Tear it down. We're going to rebuild it more efficient. Higher R value in the windows. Better air conditioning system.
The values that, and we'll bring it back full circle. Maybe we'll move on to something else. But the values that those who died on D-Day fought for
Are mocked by today's regime.
and completely dismissed by those that we've elected, not we, but we, because they no longer believe that as an American you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make something of yourself. They believe that everything that was fought for through the civil rights movement never really happened. They're fighting for it again. And here's my theory on this. And it's a theory because it hasn't been proven. If it was, it would be a law. The Democrats have had nothing to really fight for since the civil rights movement. So now they grasp every straw they can that has an ounce of some sort of perceived injustice. And they grasp onto it and they run with it as hard and as fast as they can because they feel, I don't know what it is. There's a collective shame in the fact that they won't join up to serve the military, but they have no battles to win. The rest of us are worried about working hard, making a better living for ourselves,
The illusion.
and living out the American dream.
The illusion of the American dream. Yeah. As we know, the property taxes the way they are, all you ever do is rent your house. That's all you ever do. To the point that
So AOC goes and gets a degree from Boston University and can only find a job as a bartender, which tells me she didn't look very hard, and then somehow magically gets elected to serve a district in New York.
and now it's like
unseats
she's
eight-term
in.
incumbent?
Yeah, she's in. She's like got tenure.
Because that guy that she beat pissed somebody off, and they put all their money and all their machination into helping her win. That's what they did. That's what the Democrats do. And they do it well. They do it better than the Republicans.
No doubt, but they do it with no care for the Constitution.
And now we're seeing the end game of their infiltration of our higher education system, our lower education system.
Boy, those are going good, aren't they?
Governments,
That's going well. College tuition's higher than ever.
NGOs. The Democrats infiltrated every sect of society and have successfully brainwashed, I would say, more than half of today's generation that you're useless unless the government is providing for you. That's what they've done.
I don't want the government to provide me anything. I wish they would leave me alone.
Cody Bauman says it's so cute that y'all finish each other's sentences. Stuart Martin says, don't forget the matching shirts.
We're like an
His
old
says
married
Patriots.
couple.
Mine has a maple leaf on it.
We're like an old married couple. And I look at a guy.
There's a punchline there, but I'll let it go.
Yeah, I look at things and like Peter McNally's been here a long time, and Peter's a good guy. So, Peter's politics would bankrupt this country in a year and a half.
Too late. Country's already bankrupt.
There you go. But that's Peter's politics. And the idea that, like we didn't even talk about the other day. Do you folks realize that in the middle of all this stuff going on, that Joe Biden found a way? He found a way that after he had gotten all the love from all the young people, I'm going to forgive all of your student debt. Let's finish the job. Let's finish the job. I'm going to forgive all your debt. And people said, "Hey, Joe, there's this thing called the Constitution, and there's this watchdog group. They're so pesky because they apparently now, even though everybody I've ever known in the legal profession leaned at the very least towards being a moderate, very few right-wing conservative legal people, and thank God for that. They're looking for the needle in the haystack. They're looking for the glimmer of hope. They're looking for the ray of sunshine.
Peter
The
McNally
Supreme Court says, hey, but don't do that because it's probably not going to float when it gets here because it's not constitutional. You can't just executive order that and make it happen. So what does he do? He lets it fall out of this debt relief bill, and I guarantee it's going to rear its head at election time. I tried to help our students. Yep. I tried to help the hardworking men and women of this country, and the Republicans beat it out of me to avoid a shutdown.
Yeah, it'll be a vote-buying scheme to get young voters to vote for the Democrats.
Yeah.
Peter McNally says, don't you guys have any faith in the USA of the 21st century? Talk more about unity and solutions. We've talked about the solutions.
Unity.
Peter.
The Democrats are the party of unity. Have you ever seen our country more divided? Ever? Ever more divided? You wait until the election in 24. You've never seen this country more divided. Ever in your life, Peter. Not the Vietnam War wasn't as divisive as this, and I lived through it.
Because the Democrats are always finding problems for their perceived solutions. And again, it goes back to my theory that hasn't been proven, so it's not a law. They want to divide this country into as many special interest groups as they can so that they can fight for their civil rights. What civil rights does anybody not have in this country right now? Please tell me.
People
that
don't deserve special rights have special rights. It's ridiculous. It's not. If I said to you, if I came on here tomorrow and reported as fact, I could report as fact. Target stores announcing today in San Francisco they will now have restrooms replete with litter boxes and bidets for folks who choose to go in and go to the restroom as a furry or as an animal. The only requirement is you must go in with a handler on a leash, but you can use the litter box, cover it up yourself, and walk out. You would not go, they're making a joke there. You would go, that's it, man. I'm tired of Target. I ain't going to Target. But you'd believe me because it's probably what's next. It's not a stretch. Is that a stretch?
Not at all.
Target stores
Not in
now
today's
offering
world.
free pet snacks to kids under 25 dressed in a dog outfit. And we wonder why we have mental health issues in this country. At some point when somebody's young, you go, hey, stop acting crazy. Stop it. We now, oh, you're 4 and you're in a skirt? maybe we should cut off his genitalia. Billy, would you like to be a girl? Uh-huh.
Somebody tried to argue that was, consent for that is no different than consent to treat a kid who has ADHD. And I was just like, you've lost your mind.
It's no different than consent to have sex with a minor. Certainly no different. If you're going to mutilate their body. Like we talked about last week, the UK is way ahead of the US on this. They've already said, hey, we're outlawing those surgeries till you're like 25 or something. We all agree that a man's brain doesn't develop till he's 25, but at 16, we'll let him lop off his weenie? Come on.
But why did England say we're not going to do those surgeries anymore?
It's about money for them.
It's about money here.
And
That's
mental
why
health.
that's why we haven't outlawed them.
Yeah, because it's about making money here.
There's hospitals and doctors getting rich off this stuff over here,
Absolutely.
whereas over there, the government is paying for them, and the government's starting to go broke.
And it's about a handful of folks playing God. We can now in vitro an egg and put it inside a man, and that man can give birth.
Nick Rule would say some would argue a man's brain doesn't develop until 45. True story.
Peter McKnight says, Brent, that's a big stretch. Talk about things of substance.
Well, I'll give you the solutions.
Where you
Peter.
been, Pete?
I'll give you the solutions. Less government, more individual freedom and rights.
Sounds like what this country was founded
and
on.
capitalism. Capitalism works. It has lifted more people out of poverty than any socialist program ever. Because all socialism does is create poverty. Look at the rates of poverty.
I would rather live in a meritocracy where you eat what you kill, you earn what you work for, than live in a society where I double my income right now. Double my income. Why not, right? Because they're just printing the money anyway. Everybody makes
This
the
is
same.
your fantasy. Go for it.
Everybody makes the same living, but it's double what I make now. That's what everybody makes.
They won't do that. Everybody will get a living wage. They'll determine what that living wage is. But let's play your fantasy.
But
you get double.
If you look at it that way, if it doubled my income and I knew that's all I could ever make, then human nature says I'm going to do as little as I have to do to make that amount. Oh, wait, I get 3 sick days a month. Guess what? I'm calling in 3 Mondays a month.
Absolutely.
That's what people are going to do. That's human nature. At the end of the day, people need a taskmaster. At the end of the day, people need an accountability partner.
Peter Manelli says he's a big capitalist, and here's the question I have: the U.S. is also the most generous nation on earth. Government taking my tax dollars and doling them out to whoever they think is the winner
is not right.
Charity.
And it's always people that, here's the problem. When I talk about the government giving a hand up and not a hand out, the photo op that comes to mind, it always happens. It's in all your TV commercials. It's the young, educated, pick a minority family. They've got a couple of kids. They're kind of on the verge of looking irresponsible. Like, why do you keep having kids? You can't afford to eat. But they're not bad people. They're clean. They're neat. We rat hole them, and they just need an opportunity. They don't show you the crack whore laid up somewhere who made a bunch of bad decisions. Hey, my heart bleeds for her individually. I'd like to help her individually. I'm all about Christ's Kitchen. I'm not about the government telling me I've got to give 10% of my income to Christ's Kitchen. As an example, the government believes they're better with your money than you are, and they can't even manage their own money. And they have an advantage we don't have. They have the advantage to print all the money they want, and they still can't balance their budget.
I would say if we're going to get into a war, now's the time, because we've lifted the debt ceiling.
Why not?
So
Just
if we need to start selling war bonds and other things to fund a war, now's the time to do it, Joe.
Absolutely.
Are you listening, Joe?
And by the way, to the capitalist to the Americans, to the family businesses that help us put this program on. Today you get shorted a little bit because we're out of time. But Allen's Wrecker Service, the Hartman family, the Bobby Leon family at Chesnick Furniture, the VCS companies, the Caballeros at Veracruz.
All capitalists.
All of them, shameless, hardworking, employ people, pay taxes. Atzenhofer, generations.
Part of that
Tommy
50%
Tedder's
of the
family.
country that pays 100% of the income tax of the federal government.
Steve Kidder, he doesn't practice law, he doesn't eat. AJ's detailing, he doesn't clean your car, he doesn't eat. Joe Biden's not sending him a check every month just for being here. These people matter. These people work. They help us provide this forum. And we love you guys, but I'm telling you, if you don't find a way in the next year to make a difference with your vote, you are just turning your back on all the men that died on June the 6th,
To fight for
1944.
Absolutely, to fight and die for what made America and the Western world the greatest civilization in history.
To those that have family members who fought in World War II, be very proud today. Stick your chest out and know that someone in your family was part of the greatest generation to ever walk on this country. Y'all have a blessed day. We love you.
We'll see y'all
Try to
manana.
make tomorrow more fun.
Bye, folks.
Bye.